welcome to issue 5 of Detective Comments, a Batman podcast. I'm James Attias.
And I'm Steve J. Ray. Every issue, we'll look at a different aspect of the Dark Knight over his 10-decade, 85-year history.
We'll also look at members of the Bat family.
And the Caped Crusaders' extensive rogues gallery. Now, once again, you'll see that it's not just James and I this issue. We've got a guest star, not just any guest star. This is the guy who's responsible for me destroying the airwaves and you hearing my voice. This is the guy who put me on my first podcast. This is the Superman to our Batman. The world's finest team wouldn't exist without Mr. Steve Conroy. Steve, welcome.
Thank you very much, sir. I appreciate it. And it's awesome to be here, talking some Batman.
Yep, that's how we roll.
What are we talking about, Steve, and why?
Oh, well, yeah, I mean, you basically gave me the option to do anything, which is dangerous. You then said it needs to be within the realm of Batman, which then trimmed it down. And we're doing what you know is one of my favourite, possibly maybe, I don't know, we'll get into it during this, possibly favourite Batman story of all time, which is the legendary 10 Nights of the Beast.
Ooh,
Absolute magic. From one of the greatest creative teams in the history of the Batman title, as far as I'm concerned.
This era, I think I mentioned to you this to you before. It's not really possible, really, to speak about the Batman of this era without at least mentioning the other team that was on Detective during this era as well. So, like you said, one of the best eras of Batman ever, but it wasn't that it was just firing on one of the titles; it was both of them. This is an era where I have to say we were spoiled. We were just spoiled, like legends.
Yeah, Grant and Wagner and Brayfogle over on Detective. I mean,
we've already discussed if this finishes and I'm allowed to come back. I've already got my next choice lined up. For what I want to speak.
It's absolute necessity and must. You must come back. But let's talk about that when it happens. For tonight, let's talk about Anatoly Knyazev, the cagey beast, and his mission. His 10 nights in Gotham.
Like 10 Nights of the Beast. Let's start with night 2.
Well,
they talk about night 1 a couple of pages later.
That
always.
I mean, it's one of those things that I think doesn't happen in comic books today. Is one of the things that Jim Starlin I don't think does in his entire run of Batman is he never thinks that the audience is stupid. He's happy to say, if you're reading this comic book, you already know like why you're here. He doesn't have to rehash it. He doesn't have to start on day one. And one of my favorite things about this book, as I was going through and rereading it, is that Batman really doesn't become involved until day 3. And even then, he's only listening to conversations. Batman's playing catch-up. This entire first issue, he is playing catch-up. And it's done in such a way that it's not like he's playing catch-up and he's an idiot. There's a line I'll go into later that explains it. But, you know, he's landed in the middle of an event. He's not there investigating it, and he's there when it starts. It's like someone is already in his city, and someone is already 2 steps ahead of him. It doesn't happen very often. I think maybe the last time that was done well, or to a point that I kind of would compare to this, is the Court of Owls. You know, the Court of Owls was already happening. He landed into the middle of it, and it was kind of like, one of you guys made a Doctor Who reference before. One of my favourite Doctor Who's concepts is the girl who waited in the Capaldi era, where at the end of that first episode, we find out that the Doctor's been in the middle of it for hundreds and hundreds of years with this person stalking him, and he had no idea. He can't do anything about it. He's just, for want of a better word, you know the word I want to say, he is just absolutely screwed. You know, can't do anything about it. Got to run with it, and that is what I love about this. As you said, it starts on day 2, but we don't see Batman until day 3. Well, fair enough. That's only about 5 or 6 pages into the issue. But
See, me reading it, I until you gave me that wonderful, like just pure love of the story, I was thinking, why did they call it 10 Nights of the Beast? If it's a 4-issue story, why wouldn't they call it 4 Nights of the Beast? Why wouldn't they cut it down? Why would they start on day 2? Like all of that stuff. But throwing it in like Batman has been caught unawares and this is already going on gives it a whole new light for me. So like already you've changed my perception. But like, because I was all ready to be like, why is it called 10 Nights of the Beast? Like we only see like 7 of them, don't we? But
yeah,
it's yeah.
Batman doesn't have to be involved in all 10 nights. You know, it's not 10 Nights of the Batman. It's 10
Yeah.
Nights of the Beast. We're not even according to the title of the story, Batman is not the main character in the story. The Beast, the KG Beast, and how good is whoever came up with that name. I mean, geez, Stan Lee, who was still alive at the time, must have been rolling around in his not yet grave, saying, "Why the hell did I not come up with that name?"
And why
He
the
came
hell
up with,
did I not? And why the hell
you
did
know,
I let Jim Starlin go to DC?
oh, Jim Starlin. Yeah, I mean, Jim Starlin. Uh, for those who don't know, Infinity Gauntlet.
Mhm.
Everything that the Marvel Universe is based on Jim Starlin. Now, don't get me wrong, huge Stan Lee fan. I will shout from the rafters my love for Stan Lee. But
Me
when
too.
people talk about the Marvel Universe, cinematic anyway, and always talk about Stan Lee, yeah, fair enough, he created some of these characters, but that all-encompassing Infinity Stones, even the lead up, one of my favorite, because I'm a DC guy more than I'm a Marvel guy, but one of my favorite runs of anything Marvel is Starlin and Lim's Silver Surfer,
Hmm.
Oh hell
and
yeah, magic!
because that setup, yeah, see, this guy knows what I'm talking about. That setup for Thanos, bringing Thanos back, his worship for death, his hunt for the Infinity Stones. No one knew that was even going on. Like it was happening in the Marvel Universe. But back then, when we were collecting comics, no one was kind of like, oh, this is leading into the next big event. Infinity Gauntlet just landed on our laps. And that was it. It was the same with 10 Nights of the Beast. This story just landed on our laps to the point where it's I think, Steve, you'll know this. Is this the first comic book that had like a subtitle to it? So we're in the normal Batman universe. We're in the normal issues of Batman. So like this one, the first issue was what, 417?
Yep.
But it had its own header. It wasn't just Batman. It was Batman 10 Nights of the Beast.
It's funny you should ask that, but yeah, this is a history-making book because it wasn't the first; it was the second. But the first, of course,
What
was
was the first?
Was it
Batman
Ra's
Year One.
Oh,
Batman
did
Year
year
One.
one have year one?
Yeah, it was
Did it have
totally
its own?
branded as Batman Year One,
Oh,
but it was only a 4-issue arc by a guest team. This was Batman proper by the Batman creative team, and the first series within a series by that creative team, where they totally redid the logo, created the 10 Nights of the Beast. It had never been done before. This was the
yeah.
very first time, absolutely. And now it's a mainstay. I mean, let's put it this way: he did it again with Death in the Family a few issues later. And the stunning thing is, and I want to touch upon what you said about Jim Starlin, Steve, because it's an absolute fact that this man, not just in this story, likes putting Batman on the back foot, but I like that because I don't think there's been a run of comics where Batman has felt more human, more real, and not just because he's fallible, because he always wins in the end, but he wins because he's smart and because he thinks about things and he gets his ass kicked first. That's an aspect of the character that I absolutely love. I love the fact that I mean, people take the piss about the Bat God and the pep time and all that shit. I actually love that, and I do think that given time, given anything, he could beat anybody. I mean, I'm famous for saying Batman versus Spider-Man, Batman wins. Batman versus Wolverine, Batman wins. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles versus He-Man and the Masters of the Universe, Batman wins.
Yeah.
That's just the way I see things. But in every Starling story, starting mainly with this one, actually, no, starting with 414, his first issue as writer, where he's got a best friend who's murdered by a serial killer because he messed up. That just made me see Batman in a whole new light. Like, oh my God, he's not infallible. He can make mistakes, but that just strengthens his resolve and makes him stronger.
In this story, he's never on the front foot. Like, think about how many people the Beast goes after and how many
Exactly.
he actually saves. Like,
Yeah.
he saves like what, 2, 3
Yeah.
out of the list of 10?
And that's after the killing numbers have gone into the triple figures.
Yeah. Like, and this is Batman on the back foot from the start. And the only reason he saves the person at the end is because he has to save the person at the end for obvious reasons during the 80s. Like,
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah,
but he says it though, doesn't he?
Even that though, it's the like this is the funny one. Did Batman win? Is the question now that we'll get to the end when we get to the end. For me, this is one of the defining moments in.
Oh yeah.
What side of the line does Batman fall on? Where does he? If the chips are down, where does he fall? Where does he go? Who is he? And after all of this time, can he still maintain the moral compass that he had? And the thing I do like you were talking about Batman being on the back foot and all of that, is this is the story as well where we just get hints when Batman is talking about the fact that he has been doing this for a few years now. He's not the young man he was in like the aforementioned year one, or the, I believe, criminally underrated year two. He's a guy who's been doing this for a while, and I think he starts this story taking for granted that he's got this. This is his city. This is his game. He's going to shut this down. It's not a problem. His confidence at the beginning when he's listening in, and I love the 80s. There's a few 80s tropes I love in this. The first one is Batman listening in on a microphone that is Gordon's collarbone.
yeah.
Right, Steve will testify with me with this. In the 80s, no microphones were that small. We were amazed that the Transformer Soundwave
This was
cassette
James Bond
player
level
was
shit.
big. Oh, this was, yeah.
I was just going to say, James Bond had microphones that small, and what is Batman?
In the
James
60s.
Bond of the comic book world.
We did not, as
Look cooler.
children of the 80s, we did not have microphones that big. And I just love there's the pose where Gordon's just there and he's basically like, well, I suppose we're just going to have to stay out of it and do what we do. And they close in on the wrist.
Buttons on his cuff, yeah.
Oh, and you just see one's got a little kind of patchwork. Of course, it's a Batman microphone. And that's one of the things Stalin did well, is Stalin gave Batman resources, but he didn't give him get out of jail free cards. Like, he didn't suddenly pull out the impossible MacGuffin from his utility belt.
Shark repellent bat spray. No, bat repellent shark spray. No, yeah.
Yeah, that's one.
Yeah, there was none of that. Everything he did was in the realm of possibility and what a okay, you're going to have to remind me on this one, Steve. It was the 80s, so money was very different. 80s Bruce Wayne, millionaire or billionaire?
Back then, I think it was billionaire, but it was like the beginnings of the billionaire era, right at the start. Before that, it was right to the end of the Bronze Age. He was a millionaire.
Right, cool. It's stuff that a billionaire could afford to make if he was so inclined, and if he was Bruce Wayne. And it's just, yeah, the introduction to Batman into the story is just, I don't know. There's something about it that is, I don't know. He's listening in. He doesn't really have much of a regard for these federal agents, as we will discover. And there's an arrogance to it. It's almost like he already thinks it's over. He already thinks it's done.
Same with
You
Gordon.
know,
Gordon has no respect for the federal agents. He's quite, and Gordon's a beat cop at this point who's kind of come over from Chicago Internal Affairs. Now he's at Gotham, had a promotion, and now he's like, whoever these CIA fools are, don't know how we do things around here. And I'm looking at him with his little curly moustache at the time, and I'm like, Mr. Gordon, what right do you have?
yeah. And that's the thing I love about these agents is they become fodder. They just become cannon fodder and some of them in the best possible way. Like there's there's the one who gets hit by the cinder block.
That's what I was thinking as well.
Oh man, I love that. I don't know if we jump around or if you guys like to go chronologically.
We're going this is the way we like. I mean, I'm loving what I'm hearing.
To our listeners and viewers who haven't read 10 Nights of the Beast, it is about a rogue KGB agent who is sent to assassinate 10 important figures who are working on a space wars called Star Wars program that at the time around the Cold War, Russia and US, very fragile alliance. And this is about a serial killer assassin coming to Gotham and Batman and the CIA teaming up to try and stop him. So now that everyone knows the premise, we can jump around as much as we want.
Great, because I love the fact that a thing that DC did at this time, and they did it for quite a while, they use era-appropriate presidents. So it's Ronald Reagan is the final target.
I love the bit where Batman swings down, scoops him up, saves him, and he's like, sorry to do that to you, Mr. President. And like, you got Ronald Reagan being like, what in blazes is going on? Like, it's just, you can't help but read it in his voice as well.
He is, I think the best way to describe it, befuddled. At one point is probably the way to do it. But yeah, DC had a habit of doing that. I remember there was Clinton. I can't remember again. I'm sure it's probably something Superman. There we go. Mm-hmm. They would use era-appropriate presidents. I mean, I don't remember the last time we saw DC do it, but they didn't have a problem using like real life people from time to time.
Every president now in comics is a shadowy figure that has the outline of the era-appropriate president. Like, they don't want to draw Obama in Civil War 2 for Marvel, but for instance, it's a shadowy figure that looks like he has a slight grey afro. Okay, who could that be? Like, they really don't like coming straight out with it. Whereas this has Batman swinging Ronald Reagan across the rooftops.
That's the difference, though, between 80s comics and today's, though. See, when we were reading this, obviously, because Steve and I read this when it first came out, and we probably read this 1,000 times. Back then, it was exciting because, oh my God, this is happening, this is real. And the same with Death in the Family. But to read us 10 years later, that was like, well, hang on, then how old is Batman now? So he must be like in his early 50s now, then, if this happened like 10 years ago. But the best thing is, because even though that really annoyed me, and I thought you shouldn't put real people in comics because it ages them. Now, 30 years later, people read this and think, oh, who are these people anyway? They just think, oh, that's just an old guy who's the president. So it actually really does work. Because these days, people don't know who Elvis, the Beatles, and some post 2000s don't know who Michael Jackson is. So they won't know who Ronald Reagan is or who the Ayatollah Khomeini is in Death in the Family. So I complained about it 10 years later, but now it doesn't make any difference.
Yeah, I mean, I think that might be the craziest casting ever in a comic book is when the Joker walks out and he's been made the Ayatollah's ambassador and he just walks through the United Nations. Again, just Stalin just throwing it out there and just going boom. And the thing I have to say I do love about Stalin is, as I said, this is quite possibly my favourite Batman run alongside Grant and Breyfogle. Separating the two, it's almost impossible. Now, it's probably to do with my age, because the Batman number 414 that you mentioned earlier, Steve, was my very first Batman comic. That was the very first Batman comic I picked up. So without realising it, I started with the issue that Stalin started with. So
on point.
Yeah, it's so this. I get 414, 415, 416 happen, and then I get given 10 Nights of the Beast. Now, people wonder why sometimes I complain about modern comic books. But when you are given this as your third book, and I have no idea what a miniseries is, I will put this out there. One of the things I look back on now and go, oh, that was pretty stupid, was back when we used to get the annuals. I went to the newsagent, and Justice League International annual number 2 was there. Now, I knew that little about comic books that I spent probably about half an hour looking for annual number 1, completely unaware that it had come out a year before. This is how new I was to comic books. So to give me this, to wrap Batman up in this bow and serve me 10 Nights of the Beast. Now, one of the things we have to talk about is the amazing covers that we got blessed with.
Like Zek. Oh boy.
Oh.
Even though his KG Beast was for some baffling reason in some kind of S&M gear, not like the gear you wore in the comics at all, but still those covers were bloody amazing.
There's one in particular where Batman is dodging the bullet fire and there's a dumpster behind him. It just shows everything that Batman is. It just, it's a machine gun fire, the dumpster getting riddled with bullet holes, and Batman just going the dodge. Zek's covers were just incredible, and I mean this was around his Punisher time as well, wasn't it, Steve?
Exactly the same time, yeah.
Yeah. So that's the other thing is you mentioned about Stalin coming over to DC. This was an era where we had people not just tied down to one company. I mean, it's around this time that J.M.D. Attias is doing Justice League International.
Another legend.
And also Fearful Symmetry, Craven's Last Hunt.
What a time to be alive.
He's doing them at the same. He's doing it at the same time. Oh, you can probably see the fence has changed colour. Yeah, the sun has risen.
The sun is.
Viewers, listeners, we are recording in the time machine where James and I are. It is currently coming up to 10 p.m. on Wednesday, but Steve, the Time Lord Conroy, is actually at coming up to 6 a.m. on Thursday. Yes, time travel does exist in
podcast o'clock. And I am sorry to tell you this, guys. Tomorrow does not go well for either of you.
Oh.
All right. So
that's I
beg to differ.
I don't want to go into any details,
all the time, but I'm still here. Damn it.
Well, if it's not going to go my way, then we're going to make the most of tonight. Right. So and like you were saying, if this was your first, like a little warm up with like the 414 and then straight into 10 Nights of the Beast, like it's like if your first time, I'll keep it Australian for you. If your first time is with Margot Robbie, then after that, everything is just kind of going to pale in comparison, isn't it?
I'd like to say I could.
Not for me. Arlene Sorkin forever.
Yeah, see, for me, if we're talking 80s, I would have been Margot Robbie. The 80s version, it would have to be Kelly Preston.
Yeah, pretty much.
If you don't know
who Kelly Preston is, everybody fancied. John Travolta's ex-wife, isn't it?
100%.
Jenny Maguire's girlfriend who dumps it at the beginning of the film.
John Travolta's wife.
Yeah.
Yeah, well done. So, all right. So what I'm going to do is I'm picking up my because
I need that book. I've only got the floppies. I need that book.
Well, listeners, Steve is picking up a copy of the collected edition of Caped Crusader Volume 1.
Right.
I must have it.
He's now showing a 10 Nights of the Beast cover, which shows a very S&M looking KGB.
I'd never ever actually put that together. That's the cover I'm talking about. That's the one that I love.
Oh, it is
classic.
Batman jumping over,
brilliant,
riddled with bullets and dodging them like the superhero.
Riddle me this, Batman.
And the cool thing is with these covers, is everything everything that happens on these covers happens in the book. These covers are not an abstract.
Unlike the Silver Age.
Yeah, the Silver Age lied to us, Steve, quite often.
And unlike an age,
it's
true.
you can flick through this, and you can land on any page, and any page you can talk about. Okay, so like that's the page I landed on. This is the cinder block incident that we're talking about.
Listeners, not viewers, we're looking at the page where the KG Beast has jammed an elevator and is throwing cinder blocks from 20 stories above and murdering people with the velocity they are gathering in the elevator.
What a
this
blockhead.
is what we don't get in modern comic books. See that this Batman is shimmying up the elevator shaft for 4 pages.
Yep.
It is just 4 pages of him shimmying up to try and get to the same level that the KG Beast is on. It's just Stalin knew how to pace a comic. It's unapologetically kind of it's action based, but the action isn't the main motivator of this story. As I alluded to earlier, there's one specific line that I think sums this story up, where Batman just turns around and he says, "For the first time, I think I've met someone who's better at this game than I am."
Oh yeah,
very good. The actual exact words: "I've finally run into someone who's better at this game than I am." So well said, Steve. That was almost verbatim. Good job. And that's the key point of the whole story.
Yeah, and yet the KG Beast is not mentioned when people talk about Batman villains, when they talk about, the adversaries that Batman has faced and stuff like that. KG Beast,
There's
for
a
me,
reason for that.
He should be up there. Well,
let's bring this into the modern era. KG Beast, throughout modern media, has been shown many times. Almost every single time he has met a comically weak ending. Like in Arkham Asylum, the animated film that had the Suicide Squad in, KG Beast is used as an example for what Amanda Waller's brain bombs do. He stands up, crosses an invisible line that Amanda Waller says don't cross, she blows his head off.
Yep.
In Batman v Superman, Anatoly Knyazov, never called KG Beast, is in it, and he is the one who is threatening Superman's mother at the end when Batman has the big warehouse fight and is blown up.
Played by an Australian.
Oh, nice.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm pretty sure he had a bit in Arrow as well.
Yes, he did.
God knows if I can remember it. Not once has he been
worth remembering.
Like his due. I'd say it was only an All-Star Batman by
Scott Snyder.
Scott Snyder, yeah, a few years ago. They painted him as this Kraven the Hunter, almost identical. Like he had all of his weapons. He went out on a hunt because he was hunting Two-Face and Batman was protecting him. That was when it felt like they'd almost given him the respect that they gave him originally. Because like when he shot Nightwing in the head, like they very gently touched upon he didn't want to kill him. He shot him in that specific part of his head, which, okay, fine. If he's that good for him.
He'd been hired by the Court of Owls, yeah.
But then he was beaten up by the Batgirls after that. And he was beaten up by Batman and obviously tortured and thrown in the snow. But, like, the Batgirls beat him up. And this is a man who took Batman to the limit in a Speedo. And I think let's talk about his injury, because he doesn't start the book with his signature look. This is the book and story where he gets it. Batman is hanging from a building, and on his way down, he's hanging from a wire. He whips the wire around the KG Beast's hand, thinking, if I'm holding it down, then he's not going to be able to get away. And I'll leave it to you guys. What does the KG Beast do to escape?
He chops his hand off.
Cuts his own hand off with a bloody axe.
With an axe, with a fire axe, like and yeah.
That's when the line comes.
Yeah, that's when the line comes, and that's, like you said, that's when we get his signature look. Now, you mentioned, this is where he gets his signature look. Basically, everything about the KG Beast happens in this story. Like, this is it. If you want to know everything about the KG Beast, this is basically the only thing you're going to get.
Don't read anything afterwards, apart from possibly Tom King's run, because two things happen to KG Beast after this, and they are Chuck Dixon. who obviously I'm not going to talk about his politics or him as a man because I'm just going to get annoyed. But he was
But
a
it's
great
also
writer.
not what we're here for.
Exactly. But he was a great writer. But what he did to KG Beast was nothing short of sacrilege. He made him a big lumbering ox, the same way that Joel Schumacher made Bane a big lumbering ox, when both men are the greatest threats, physical and mental, that the Batman's ever faced. And like you, Steve, you said
Yep.
it. If you want to read KG Beast, read this. That's
Yes,
it.
this
Plain
is
and
it.
simple.
I mean, there was a couple of years later, they did do like a spiritual successor to this with the, if I'm going to, let me see if I can
NKV
get this
Demon.
probably, NKV Demon, where Batman goes to Moscow and it's basically the Beast's apprentice. It was nice. It was, you know, it wasn't this. You know, we're not talking about that story today. But one of the reasons that I picked this when Steve said, "What do you want to talk about?" Was this story is just criminally underrated. Even today, reading this today,
Absolutely.
it's for my money. It's got nothing to do with nostalgia. It's got nothing to do with things were better. But this is just a exceptionally well crafted story by a guy who gets Batman. He we have seen Gotham razed to the ground so many times over the past few years. Gotham has been taken over by the Joker, by Bane. It's been destroyed. It's been rebuilt. It seems like there seems to be a bit of a run going on with Batman at the moment, where they tend to ignore the fact that like Gotham, although Gotham's always been a shithole, there's no getting around that. Um, it's just there's too much going on at the moment as far as the destruction of Gotham constantly. The thing with Stalin's run and the KG Beast, 10 Nights of the Beast especially, is this is all happening at night. This is all happening in a very isolated way until we get to one particular scene where what the KG Beast does to get his prey is just Batman is constantly stunned by the lengths this guy will go to. But this doesn't impact everyday Gothamites. This is not a story about massive collateral damage. This is not a story about Gotham being taken over by someone. This is not a story of where, you know, Gotham just again changes hands to a different supervillain or something like that. This is a guy on a specific mission and is carving through Gotham with surgical precision until he decides to poison an entire banquet of people just to get to one person.
The one guy.
And again, Batman fails. A room full of people are just wiped out. Like Batman does not win this story. He doesn't. There's no real victory for Batman in this. He even says himself in the last issue, like he said, years ago I would have tested myself against you. I would have wanted to know. And the ending where we just get those panels, and I can't believe we have gone this far without talking about the magician with the pencils, Jim Aparo. Like, just his Batman is stunning, and I mean that both with the pencils on the page and the
He's
look.
just one of the greatest storytellers, period, in the history of comics. I mean,
give the podcast a bit of a warm up before we mention him, so that Steve can just gush. That's it.
I want to gush about both these guys because James, what you've got to remember is you are so lucky. You've got your CBRs, your Screen Rant, so many comic book websites. Back when we were reading this, we had Wizard magazine, and when Jim Starlin started, he actually did 2 issues as artist on this series, 402 and 403. And I was a Jim Starlin fan because of stuff like Dreadstar, because he'd made Adam Warlock worth reading.
Dreadstar. Where did you pull that one out of your ass from?
I'm an old
mate.
fucking nerd, mate.
Oh man.
Jim Starlin was the guy who made Marvel awesome, the Negabands, the co-creation of Thanos, and then he went on off and killed Marvel, which blew the entire comic book reading universe's minds apart. So when I was reading the magazine, said, "Oh, Jim Starlin's going to be writing Batman," I thought, "Hey, what? This is a sci-fi writer.
Yeah,
Cosmic Odyssey, um, Infinity Gauntlet, Thanos, Batman. That ain't going to work." Boy, was I wrong, because he created a Batman that was more real, more grounded, like you said, surgical precision. And what I said, Beast is a cerebral and physical match for Batman. And
yeah,
that's what blew my mind about him. I mean, he did so much. I mean, for DC, he co-created Mongol. He did Cosmic Odyssey with Mike Mignola, Gilgamesh 2, The Weird with Bernie Wrightson, which was absolutely insane if you've read that.
I was going to say,
and
Cosmic Odyssey is criminally underrated.
Oh, everything Starlin did for DC is criminally underrated.
yeah, I will 100. This Batman run
Yeah.
is
It's only a year and
incredibly
a half,
underrated.
17 issues.
Yeah,
And it was
it's
groundbreaking.
yeah, and
17
it's the
issues in a
reach.
year and a half. Wow.
Yeah, yeah, there is not enough that you could say about
Yeah.
Stalin. I mean, Mike DiCarlo as well. I
Inker,
think
supreme.
one of the
Well,
most underrated people in
he
comic
inked
books
all
in
but
general.
2 issues over Jim Aporo's art in Stalin's
Yeah,
run. So
yeah, and the thing with this team, you look at these guys, you look at this era. You've got these stories being pumped out with this artwork, and it's happening on Detective as well. And there were no delays. Comics came out every single month, like clockwork, and we got quality every single month. We got a mini movie in a book every single month from these guys.
Like,
And when
I'm like, nah, that would never happen. There's always delays now.
oh man, my the worst delay ever was for me, and don't get me wrong, it was worth it at the end. Full credit to the guy. It was issue 6 of Superman's Secret Origin by Gary Frank. And between issues 5 and 6, I think it was a 9-month
I was just
a
about to
9-month wait.
behave
I was
yourselves,
just
you
about to say,
wet behind the ears whippersnappers.
people have
31
have had
fucking years.
in the run.
Oh, here we go.
Miracle
Yeah,
Man, the
yeah.
Silver Age, issue 2,
Yeah.
and Miracle Man, the Silver Age 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. So stop it, 9 months. Behave yourselves. I didn't think I'd live to see the end of the Silver Age. And now they're actually teasing the Dark Age. I wonder if I'll get that in my 80s. If Gaiman
You'll be
and
94 years
Buckingham are
old.
still alive by then, yeah. So,
You'll be 94.
but again, we digress. Let's talk about Jim Aparo. Started at Charlton, and one of the few people who is penciler, inker, and letterer on a ton of his comics. Not a few, a ton. I mean, this blew my mind. He drew 102 issues of The Brave and the Bold back to back. And that's one of the greatest team up series of all time. He was so
What's it
good,
called?
so
Adventure
amazing.
comics. He did
Yeah.
adventure comics. It's
Aquaman,
Aquaman.
Phantom
His
Stranger.
Aquaman is stunning.
But his Brave and the Bold one is so legendary. I don't know if you guys know this, that Jim Aparo himself appears in issue 124 as himself because of the love of the artist by the editorial and creative team of the book. Drawing Batman constantly from the 70s, 80s, and 90s. He inked John Byrne on the first issue of The Untold Legend of the Batman, but penciled and inked issues 2 and 3, which I don't know if you guys know, that was the first ever Batman limited series. Jim Aparo.
Okay.
And,
Yeah.
you know, he co-created Connor Hawke with Kelly Puckett. He's done so much, co-created The Outsiders. You can't say enough about
The
stuff.
Outsiders. Of course, he was The Outsiders.
Yeah.
100. Yeah, that was a killer series. The original Batman and The Outsiders. Man, that was. And Batman and The Outsiders was created because Brave and the Bold ended.
Exactly. It literally started a month after Brave and Bold ended, yeah.
And they still wanted a Batman title, and they still wanted a Aparo. So
yeah.
Was that Mike Barr?
Yes, Mike W. Barr wrote that.
Oh, mate, Mike Barr and Aparo working together on anything works.
Absolutely.
There's not a Jim Aparo book I don't like.
Agreed.
It's just if I see a cover of his, I did get full props at work as as James knows, working in a comic shop, occasionally you kind of come across some back issues, and I got very excited because there was an old run of adventure comics that came in through the door.
So cool.
And I turned around to the young girl who was working with us, and I just went, oh, Jim Aparo is the best, and then threw the book back down. And I didn't realise until after, she was like, how do you know these things? Like, how did you know who that guy was? How did you know? I said, well, you know, she's like, oh, I wish I had your knowledge in my head. I said, you really don't, because a comic shop is the only place I can put that knowledge to actual practical use and
with your brothers from another mother, mate.
And a podcast, yes.
And with us.
Yeah, it's. I mean, you can't see Aparo's artwork and not know it's Aparo. You know, he's
when I told some people we were going to be reviewing this book, I described it to them, and then I said KG Beast, and they were like, okay, who's that? And I was like, he's a Russian assassin who, by the end of the story, has a gun hand. Like, how do you talk to people who haven't read 50, 60 years of comic books and talk about an assassin who has a gun hand and say that, yeah, but it's a serious story. Like, he's really scary in it. Like, but no, he has a red gun hand.
Even the gun hand, like, it should be ludicrous. It should be, but the fact that we start that final issue because the hand gets chopped off at the end of issue 3.
Yep.
We start issue 4 with a dead body up against the wall.
Yep.
And this is the guy who's created the hand for the beast. It's like, this is how ruthless this guy is. It's like, you know, I can just picture he's kind of like fix it on, and the guy's kind of like, so what do you think? And the beast is kind of like, I'm not sure. Let me try something. And we, again,
yeah,
it's a Stalin thing. He starts that issue with a dead body. And then tells us why that guy is a dead body.
Yeah.
You know, we don't have to have that whole initial thing, because two things are important about this guy. He created the gun hand, and he's dead.
Of the gun hand.
That's the two things that are the most important about this guy. We don't need to waste time with this guy's backstory. We don't, you know, it's not like one of these things where, again, it's a trope of modern comic books where if someone is in an issue of Batman, well then, and they're given more than 3 or 4 panels or given some kind of dialogue, in a year's time, someone will make him a supervillain of some description. There are no, I don't mean this literally because there are some, there's no wasted characters in modern comic books. There's no side characters. There's no one who just passes through. You know, it's insane to me the amount of people over the years who have become supervillains just because they've crossed paths with Batman one time.
Yeah.
You know, this guy's just dead. We know that he's an inventor. We know that he's crossed paths with the Beast. We know he was stupid enough to give the Beast a weapon. And
we have Batman again saying, I suspected he'd come to this person, but I was too late. As in Batman was too late again.
Yeah, constantly too late, constantly being beaten to the punch. And even when he is there on time, he still gets beaten. Like that room full of people, the Beast poisons a room full of people and then just moves on to the next. He's just a shark. That's all he is. He's just a shark moving forward. He's not. He's barely even concerned about the Batman. Now he must know, because we learn early in this story that one thing that the Beast does is he researches. This guy's not an idiot. He knows Gotham.
Yeah, as well as Batman. I mean, he proves it.
Yeah, he knows this city. He knows everything, and then he doesn't care about Batman until the hand.
Yep.
Once the hand comes off, that's when he's kind of like, okay, this guy is, and it's not even that he's worried about him. It's like, this guy is a problem. This Batman is a problem.
I got two things. One was the way they showed that the Beast knows Gotham is because when he jumps off a building, he knows exactly where a flagpole is.
Yep.
And Batman's like, oh, he knew where that flagpole was. So like,
Yeah.
I think he's just
And the best thing is he knew where that flagpole is, but Batman knew a telephone wire was coming.
yeah. Like,
You know?
oh, these things like that could have been broken because a fat pigeon landed on a telephone wire, but no, Batman's like, it's okay. I know there's a telephone wire coming up that I can swing on. Like, and the second thing was, back to the gun hand. At the end, Batman, when he's fighting with him, is constantly hitting the gun hand, and then it jams. He's like, my blows to the gun hand must have jammed it, but there's a bayonet attached to it, and he's like, so, but it's still a deadly weapon. You imagine this guy with this giant red gun hand with a blade on the end, swinging it at you, and we're reading it, and we're like, oh my god, this is intense. But like in the modern day, this is like it's like almost cartoonish, but it was written so well. And I'm sure at the time, you guys will have to tell me.
Drawn and paced so well as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the pacing. Like you forgive the extremes. You forgive the cartoony that you were talking about because it's just the pacing is there, the writing is there.
But remember, this is the same era as Cable. Think about Cable's guns. Think about Wade Kim Wilson. And no, this isn't cartoony. This is awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the one man who had more pockets than Batman is
the unlimited pouches of Cable. That's it.
oh, unbelievable. But it's that gun hand is fantastic because honestly, at one point I think if like gas comes out of it, like he's
oh yeah,
he's got a gas canister in there as well. But my favourite thing about it is not the gun, it's not the gas. It's when you mentioned the bayonet. I think one of my favourite disarming scenes in any comic book is when the KG Beast is stabbing at Batman, and Batman just runs it into the wall and snaps it.
Yeah.
And it's very simple. It's very grounded, but it's so good. It's just he's got this weapon and he's coming at Batman from all sides. And this is where the reason Batman is able to finally, and I'm not even going to say he beats the Beast. The reason he is able to stop the Beast is because he finally takes him seriously.
Mm-hmm.
He finally turns around he's like, "It's this." Like Batman is. If he does not take this guy seriously, he's dead. This guy will, and it won't even be. There's this thing with Batman where killing Batman would be the biggest claim to fame that any villain would have. Like if you've got Batman's scalp, well, first of all, we've seen what happens when people go after Batman. The Joker goes after them because they've got no place killing the Batman when the Joker doesn't want them to. But this guy would just move on. He would be, as we mentioned, that room full of people that he poisoned from a distance. He would have the same feeling about killing Batman than he did about killing those people. He would move on.
Yeah.
Next
Means
mission
to an end.
It's that lovely line from a terrible, terrible movie, and I do apologise for referencing I think it's 1993 cinematic classic Jean-Claude Van Damme's Street Fighter, where Raul Julia says, I think he says something along the lines of, "The day you met Bison was the greatest day of your life. For me, it was a Tuesday."
Yeah, he says that to is it Chun Li?
Yeah.
Played by Ming Na Wen. Yes.
Love that line. It is just like, and that
he's the best thing in the whole film. Let's be fair.
Oh, and basically, suffering while making it and still giving it his all. But I think that is the KG Beast's feeling in this. It's like if he killed Batman, it would just be a Tuesday.
Yep.
For any other villain, any other like street level thug who got lucky and was able to kill Batman, it would be the greatest moment of their life. For the KG Beast, it would just be another notch on the bedpost.
So for those of us listeners and viewers we'll talk about the ending a bit now. So we've got Batman and KG Beast are in the tunnels underneath Gotham, and they're fighting, and we don't know who's going to win. And Batman manages to lure the Beast into a room, and then the Beast is like, "Come on, come on!" And Batman edges backwards, closes the door, and bars it. So a lot of the people of the world at the time thought, does Batman leave him down there to die? He's trapped this man in a room that has
Yes.
no air, no light, no nothing, no food, no water. He's locked him in there. Has he left him to die? And does this mean that Batman won? Does this mean that Batman broke his rule? Did Batman lose? Like, let's discuss that. That ending, which was a high talking point about this story, the ending for many years.
Still is.
Yeah.
And at one point, though, they did go back, and I can't remember who wrote it, but someone actually wrote a definitive ending to what happened to the KG Beast. It's not worth going into. It's not worth. I only mention it as a
Not when you've got us
as a
here.
completionist.
I've got the answer for everything.
So apparently, Batman went back, and it completely undermined. I can't remember who it was who wrote it. It completely undermined what Stalin did here. It was supposed to be ambiguous to a point of conversation, like the conversation we are about to have. Oh, yeah. I mean, and this is what I'm saying. At this time when we were spoiled, we were getting this here. At the same time, we're getting it must be almost exactly the same time over in Detective. Grant and Brayfogle are doing, I think, a two-part story about Gotham's elite, basically watching videos of people being the shit kicked out of them. And that's how they're enjoying themselves. And Batman comes across it, and he absolutely shames them. You just mentioned the Killing Joke. Killing Joke is this time. It's. I'm telling you, this era has nothing to do with nostalgia. This era, it is nostalgic.
Great comics.
It is nostalgic. Don't get me wrong. Like, I see covers and I see stuff from that time. You see Aparo, and instantly you're kind of transported back. Okay, I'm 12 years old. I'm 13 years old. I'm all of this kind of thing. But nostalgia brings you into it, but it stands apart from nostalgia. Stalin's Run has nothing to do with nostalgia. It has to do with a guy who absolutely 100% got this character, and I think possibly better than anyone else ever has. And like Steve said, 17 issues. 17 issues. And he created a definitive Batman the same way Neil Adams created a definitive Batman. The same way Tom King created a definitive Batman. Scott Snyder created a definitive Batman. In the same amount of time, so this is what, 80, is this 89, 88, 89, 87?
Something like that. I think it's 88, 89, yeah.
It's an 80s. We will be hearing holographic podcasts in 30 years, 40 years' time.
88.
Where 88, there we go, where people will be talking about Tom King and Scott Snyder's Batman the same way we're talking about Stalin's Batman. It's nothing to do with nostalgia.
Let's mention, obviously people talk about Stalin, sadly, mainly for Death in the Family, when this is infinitely superior. His single issues leading up to Death in the Family were infinitely superior. And his one 4-issue prestige format series, more known as a graphic novel these days with Bernie Wrightson, Batman the Cult. Because those stories were the first to test Batman, break Batman, have Batman recover long before your Court of Owls, long before your Nightfalls. These stories showed, as I said earlier, Batman is a fallible human being, but still a force of nature and someone to respect and someone who is awesome. That's what I love about Jim Starlin's Batman. Yes, he only did the guy for a year and a half, but like you said, Steve, these comics, every single one he wrote was just great because he got the character, he got the world, he got Jim Gordon. He made Jason Todd both an absolute hero in the Cult and in this. I mean, he's the one who stops KG Beast's
Suicide bomber.
suicide bomber. It's Jason that does that, not Batman. And also
who
breaks
is
Jason down
launching through Gotham on a hand glider.
There you go.
Covered
Through
in
style.
with comical dynamite strapped to him like the Wile E. Coyote on a hand glider.
Yeah.
As James mentioned before, there are some cartoonish aspects to this story.
Still
They
happening in movies today.
matter. They don't matter.
But then when you've got 100 people dying, being poisoned, and just face down in their
That's
soup,
it.
that
That's
gives it some consequence.
Yeah.
Like, this may be cartoonish, but people are dying and it's actually sticking. Like, it's not like this person's dead. Oh no, no one else will die in this issue. It's people are dying and you never know who's going to drop next.
Yeah.
And I'd also like to point out to our listeners, not our viewers, that the Australian sunrise has risen behind Steve. So he now looks like an anonymous whistleblower telling the story on a comic book podcast.
There we
Now we
go.
can see his smiling, shiny face.
Turn the light back off. Turn the light back off. No, you can. We love you.
There we go. I'm sure that if I get enough sunlight, it will reflect off of my beard.
Santa Steve.
There we go.
But Jason Todd in Batman Cult is the real hero. Jason Todd in this
Absolutely.
never calls him Jason in this issue. You can only tell it's Jason Todd by knowing previously or by the curtains in his hair.
James, thank you for that, because there's also a line in this comic which I need people to hear, because I'd forgotten it. Right at the beginning, when they're talking about who the KG Beast is targeting as part of the Star Wars program, one of these people is a friend of Bruce Wayne's. And Batman says, and I quote, "Bruce Wayne and I both know him."
Ooh.
That people, if you ever had any of that for how Batman sees himself, that line speaks volumes. And that's from this story. Jim Starlin, I can salute you, mate. Salute you.
Because there's that moment, like you mentioned, there's the one that Bruce Wayne knows. I think it was Jason Green. He's already dead when Batman gets it.
Yep.
But he tries to save
he's
him
already
because
dead.
obviously he's been thrown off the roof. He thinks, I can save him from hitting the ground. He's already dead.
Pretty similar to a certain fate of a certain Gwen Stacy.
Yeah. Or Wash. But you do hear the crack when he catches her, but I digress.
I think possibly my favorite comic book death ever, and I will tell you right now, it is the very reason I have never had any interest in riding on or owning a motorcycle, is when the KGB
the Wire
calculates.
So many films have stolen that since.
Man, and the head. And again, Stalin does not shy away from letting you know this person is 100% definitely dead. Like, for those who haven't read it, they're the let's call him, I can't remember his name, so trendy scientist, cool scientist.
Yep.
On a motorbike, riding, and the KG Beast has calculated the exact height that a piece of wire needs to be to cleanly and perfectly decapitate this guy. And we get this fantastic scene of a head in a helmet flying through the air. It is brutal.
Terrifying.
Like, it's the one thing about this story that I think the KG Beast actually gives a shit about is he doesn't kill any two people the same way.
Yep.
Every death is different. Every death is unique to the person. Like, one, he goes to the trouble, like I said, of calculating how tall the person will be so he can decapitate them while they're riding their motorbike. And then another guy, he just simply snaps his neck and is going to throw him off a building.
Yep.
And he kills a couple by replacing their orange juice in their fridge with poison. Now, they're asleep at this time. Go upstairs and just stab them in their bed. You know, that's exactly it. This guy. It's an art form, and we are shown in the first 5 or 6 pages that this guy is as good as they get.
Yeah.
We don't have to kind of learn. Oh, okay, this guy might be okay. This guy might. This guy might. We're shown straight away. No, this guy has taken out 4 or 5 people before Batman is even aware that he is in his city. Batman isn't even aware that he's in his city. We start this story with KG Beast and his assistant walking into Gotham,
Yep, rocking up
having
on the
killed,
shore.
yeah, just rocking up, a couple of massive chests behind him, which I love because we get an explanation. How does the KG Beast get all his stuff?
The thing is, as
How
well,
does he
I've
get all
got
of
to
his weapons?
say
We see
that
it.
this is how he's become such a successful assassin over the decades worldwide, because he doesn't have an MO. I think that even if Batman hadn't been brought in by Jim Gordon and the CIA, if he'd have heard about all these deaths, he'd think, oh, this is just random killings, until he puts the pieces together that they're all part of the Star Wars program, because there is no MO. This is the work of 10 different people over 10 different nights, to all intents and purposes. So it's brilliant that the way Stalin has written it is that whichever way it would have happened, Batman would have still been on the back foot. So bringing him in early and trying to catch up just adds that level of realism to it, adds that level of gameplay to it. And to a point you made when we started the episode, Steve, I think that yes, the CIA are so far up their own backsides, they don't realize who they're dealing with. Because I'm sorry, Jim Gordon is twice the couple detective of any of them, as is Batman. And if they hadn't had them on, I do believe we would have had a dead president on our hands. So even though, yeah, Batman isn't the be all and end all, unfallible crime fighter that most people know him as, I still prefer this situation of Batman and this story above so many others because of that.
Yeah, well,
I
it
completely
has
agree.
to be. It has to be one of the best Batman runs of all time.
Oh no, no
It's just,
argument.
And just going back to the
just has to be.
decapitated motorbike head,
Yeah.
Gordon then says they put it down to kid's prank gone wrong.
Yeah.
So he has deniability, this murderer who's like precision cut the head off of
Prove it.
Joneses,
Yeah.
and they're like, wow, what a horrible accident. And he's just sitting there like in the shadows, like, like
Also, the fact that the police, the Gotham City Police, or whoever it was who was handling this case, put this down to a juvenile prank
yeah.
is just what. There, have a good day. Love
Yeah.
you. Bye. And yeah, it's a juvenile prank. How fucked up are the kids of Gotham? That this is the kind of prank that they're pulling. Like, yeah, okay. So the kids of Gotham. Okay, so we're going to have a water bomb fight. Then we're going to egg Old Man Willard's house, and then we're going to do the old classic wire from telephone pole pranks.
Well, we got Robin stealing the wheels off the Batmobile, so that's Jason Todd.
Yeah,
The kids of Gotham
yeah.
really were doing that.
I did love that. I did love how they put it down to a childish prank that had gone wrong. It's like, yeah, all right, fair enough.
Kids in the 80s getting high on
Yeah.
toxin and hanging wires from telephone poles and roads.
Oh,
But all right, that was one of the darkest murders of the story. Let's go to the part that made me laugh and smile the most. Ronald Reagan they're attempting to assassinate him, and it is revealed at the end that a body double took his place for some of the danger. And the body double is revealed to be none other than Alfred's loyal butler, Alfred Pennyworth, whose range knows no bounds as an actor. When I read that,
Good.
and Alfred is told by Bruce, take off that silly mask. Alfred doing a Ronald Reagan impression of being like, Mr. Wayne, tear down this wall. Like, just makes me laugh so much because
it was
how
needed though.
Yeah.
After the heaviness of the ending, because like as we said, he basically locks the KG Beast in a room. Now here's the thing. There's the debate. Batman left him there to die, or Batman left him there knowing that eventually he would be able to make his own way out. They're the two arguments that we have with this story. Where do you guys sit on it? Did he leave him there to die? or did he know that he would be able to make his own way out? Because
Now, I want you two to discuss this first because I know my answer. So to talk about this, I'm dying to hear this because you two
I suppose one
are two
I should
people who know
ask,
comics. I need to hear what you think.
when did you first read this, James?
I reread it this week, but before that, when I first read it, probably would have been about 7 or 8 years ago. So
So how old would you have been at the time?
I would have been early to mid-20s.
Right. So you would have read this story with a good 10 years on me and Steve when we
I was
first read this
18.
story.
Yeah.
You were 8. You were 8. Oh, I always forget
18.
that.
Read them a month at a time.
Oh
Painful.
yeah, and that was the thing. This coming out month to month was insane. So you go first with this, Jane, because I'm really keen. So you would have been in your 20s. Steve would have been 18. I would have been 14.
I feel like my answer is going to be a cop out. I feel like Batman would have left him there, knowing full well how long a person can survive, then called up a Superman, a Wonder Woman, a Green Lantern, and said, I've got a guy who's a heavy hitter. I need you to take him and take him to a prison because for me and for the authorities, this guy is too much of a threat. That's what I like to think. I like to think Batman knows how much of a threat this is. And this is around the same time as for the man who has everything. So Superman would have been, and Wonder Woman, they could have been on their way to Superman's birthday party. Went, Wonder Woman, could you do me a favor and just grab this crook by the collar and take him to the Supermax prison? And by the way, you wouldn't mind just crushing his arm gun on the way. I like to think Batman would have got help from a heavy hitter because he would not have let him die.
Okay. Yeah. Well, for me, as I said, this is my third issue of reading Batman. Now, as Steve knows, this isn't my introduction to the character. I think we've spoken before, like my love for the Super Friends, my love for the old school animation.
Meanwhile, at the Legion of Doom.
Meanwhile, yeah. So I went into this with the cartoon notion of who Batman was. I went in, with all of that. I don't think Batman went back. I don't think that happened. For me, this is.
Hi.
Hey, buddy, how are you?
I think I drank too much water.
Too much water. Oh wow.
I drank too quickly.
The sun has just awoken and let me know I'm recording at the moment. I'm doing a show.
Sorry.
Hey, you don't have to apologise, mate. You're all good.
No,
Yeah. So everyone, you
Set
will
the
probably
KG
hear
beast on him.
you will hear the whole family at some point, I'm sure. So for me, I was really only familiar and aware of the cartoony side of Batman, and Steve has already mentioned Batman 414, which is a terrific story.
Oof,
I mean,
what a
if you
story.
want to talk, which the great thing about it as well is we get that story, and that story doesn't finish until after 10 Nights of the Beast. It's a throwaway issue. Batman 414 is a throwaway issue. There's a serial killer out there who's killing young women. I won't go into it too much because it's so readable. It's
You need to read it.
criminally underrated. And then Stalin comes back to it 6 or 7 issues later with no warning that it's a continuation of the story. So this was my first introduction to an adult version of Batman. This is my first introduction to one that isn't Adam West, that isn't animated. It's exactly the Dark Knight. So by the time I got to the end of this story, my opinion of Batman, and I still remember, was one of I put the book down and I bought the next 2 or 3 issues from the newsagent. I didn't read them. They just sat there for a while because this story absolutely just rocked me. The idea that, and I think Batman left him there to die. I think that it's one of those situations where Batman is smart enough to know it doesn't matter what condition this guy's in. It doesn't matter how weak he is. It doesn't matter if how long he's been there for. This guy is always going to be dangerous. This guy is always going to be a threat. And this guy, as long as this guy's around, people will die. I mean, he's killed what, 200 people in 10 days in Gotham. I mean, he's Joker level.
Also, one thing that Batman mentions, if he does get arrested, he wouldn't spend a day in jail because of diplomatic immunity from the Russians.
Yeah.
He would go back to Russia, have his mind wiped, and be back and killing within the week. So Batman knows this guy is not going to have a day behind bars. Worth noting.
You know what you just pointed out to me, that because you said it out loud. Where have we ever heard of before a Russian assassin who will have his mind wiped after completing a mission and is basically programmed by the Russians? This is the original Winter Soldier.
Yeah, that line that did come out to me when he said, like, oh,
But years before the Winter Soldier actually existed.
Yeah, this is the original Winter Soldier, the Russian assassin who has a reputation, but no one really knows who he is. Like, you see when
and
what's
the weapon on,
and he's Bucky Barnes. This guy's is the original. He's the original Winter Soldier.
This guy's Fucky Barnes because he'll fuck you up.
But it's yeah, I don't see a world where Batman goes back. I just don't. I just don't see it. And does it violate Batman's no killing rule? You know, because if the Beast is resourceful enough, he can get out. You know, I suppose the question is, could Batman have gotten out? Just say it was reversed. Could Batman have gotten out?
And that's why I come to my point, because we've mentioned this line. It's a line from this very story. I've finally run into someone who's better at this game than I am. Batman knew exactly what he was doing. He lured the guy into a trap he set. Now, everyone goes on about the prep time, and Batman does not get into any situation he doesn't have 5 ways out of. He knew it might take a while, but eventually the Beast would get out. He wouldn't have to go back. He wouldn't have to phone anyone. But the Beast would know he'd been beaten. The Beast would know that if he came back to Gotham, someone was waiting there for him who'd taken him down before and could take him down again. That's why people like Chuck Dixon and the writers that followed him dumbed the Beast down, because they thought, we can't have this guy come back and be Batman's equal because Batman's beaten him, so let's just dumb him down and turn him into an idiot. Batman knew exactly what he was doing. That's the whole point of the story. Batman didn't break any of his own rules. He thought, if this guy dies, nah, he won't. He knows what he's doing. I could get out of this room. He can get out of this room. And that's the way I've always seen it.
I am going to have to 100% disagree with you on this one, Steve. Just because I don't see a world where... Okay, so the Beast gets out. It means he gets out and is unsupervised, is just roaming free. I don't see Batman, because if he gets out of the room, there's no guarantee that he's just going to head off with his tail between his legs. Yep. It could be, because Batman mentions, like, if I was a younger man, I would test myself against you. Like, I would have to know if I could beat you or whatever. KG Beast is, and he mentions it during the story, is a beast. He's an animal. He is a guy who runs on instinct. I don't think that Batman would allow something that dangerous to be unchecked. Yeah. I don't think he would allow... But remember, so in KG 2 weeks' time, the KG Beast gets out.
I don't need weeks, yeah. We've got to remember, KG Beast now, though, has seen this hero, this protector of people, this people that everyone respects, leave him to die. So in the KG Beast's mind, Batman has broken his rule. Batman is now a killer. Batman is a force to be reckoned with. And yes, we do know that because we see KG Beast later, but he doesn't come directly after Batman, or he doesn't come back to Gotham. And that's the thing, whether it's a weakness or not, that a lot of people discuss about Batman is if you're not in Gotham City, you're somebody else's problem. But you come to my city, forget it. You're mine.
Yep.
That's the way
But
I always look at it.
it's a gamble to leave the KGBs there
And letting the
and
Joker live after
hope.
everything he's done isn't.
Yeah, but the Beast
Has Batman
beaten.
ever had Joker in a room, locked away, and just left him and just been like, if he dies, he dies? No.
Yeah,
I think we're going to.
I appreciate and love a Rocky IV reference.
I've been waiting to make a Rocky IV reference ever since we mentioned the Russians. I'm going to have to leave this as an open end that all three of us are in disagreement of what would have happened, just like in the comics.
And none of us are wrong.
1988,
Well,
and we're all
that's the
still
beauty
talking
of it.
about it.
That's the beauty of this book. I mean, me and Steve have spoken about stuff before where, because although we're on the same page with a lot of things, there's a lot of things with comics that we do disagree with. And we have had some fantastic conversations
And
about
movies.
things that we agree with. I am deliberately not mentioning anything to do with the movies. Especially, you know, someone breaking someone's neck, but we will leave that be. It's the beauty of this story is, what is it, 36 years later.
Yep.
We're still talking about the ending of this bloody book. We're still talking about it. And the thing I hate about this book is that after the fact, people have had the arrogance and the belief that they can continue with this story, that they can give us a definitive ending. It doesn't need it. It does. We do not need to know what happened to the Beast. We need to talk about it. We need to, as comic book fans, be able to discuss it. We need to
And
be
that
able
was
to.
Stalin's entire intent.
And it is executed masterfully. Like, this is just, it's a book that is worth talking about because it's one of those things. Does Batman cross the line? Because the other thing I refuse to believe is that in the years that Batman has done everything that he's done, that he hasn't crossed a line. He 100% has crossed the line on occasions. You can't be the Batman and not cross the lines, but Batman is allowed to push that line because it's his line. So if the line is here today, if circumstances allow it, tomorrow he will push it that little bit further, And
He does not bloody kill. This is where we're going to have a three-way battle royal.
No.
he
Batman will
doesn't
not
kill him.
commit
He does
cold-blooded
not kill him.
murder. There have been occasions, and you've seen it in comics, where in self-defense, a life has been taken. Mike Barr with Alan Davis clearly shows Batman using a goon as a human shield when he's surrounded by 1,000 machine guns. So he will not commit cold-blooded murder. He will not shoot someone in the head. He will not kill anybody. But in self-defense, and it's even in a panel, I think, of maybe Nightwing Year One, where Dick says, "Yeah, but you've killed before." He says, "No. Lives have been lost in self-defense. I will never commit murder." Like Steve said, it's impossible to do what Batman does and have everyone safe because when bullets are flying, people are going to die.
I'm going to bring it back to Batman Begins here and be like,
No. He
I
wouldn't
will
let
kill
anyone
you, but I
die
don't
either.
have to save you.
Exactly.
But
That is not Batman.
here's the thing though with Batman is I like that you brought up Batman Begins because every single person in the world, when they start a job or when they start a project or anything like that, they start that project with the intentions that they bring into it, having not experienced what they've experienced by the end of that. So Batman came into being Batman with his steadfast rules, which is fine when you're a young, optimistic. Well, obviously Batman's not optimistic, but when you're younger and more naive, you go, here are my rules. This is it. I'm going to get up early and I'm going to go for a run before I start work, and I'm going to and you do that for the first week, and then you hit
I've
the
never
snooze
done
button. But the
That's
intention
a
may
really
be,
good way of putting it. After you've spent
you
20
know.
years in a job, do you still have the same attitude as you did when you started?
But the thing is you would be able to look back and you would be able to recognise the intentions of that person. You would be
Exactly.
able to recognise 20 years ago, this is what I meant to do. Okay, I had to cut a couple of corners to get there. I made a couple of mistakes on the way, but my core intention is still there. So Batman's core intention is still there. He still defends Gotham. He still protects the innocent. He still does all of those things. But the reality of being the Batman compared to the idea of becoming the Batman are two very, very different things. You know, so I think, like Steve said, he didn't so much kill him. He definitely left him there. But the Batman knows, like Steve was saying, that KGB could probably make his way out of that room. So he's giving him a chance. He's basically put him there, and I just don't believe he got out of the room. I don't believe the Batman would leave someone like the Beast unchecked with the ability to break out. Because, fair enough, he may come out and go, oh, gee, the Batman beat me. Or he could come out and just be angry. He could come out and
come
he
out
could
and
be...
murder like a family of 5 just to get their station wagon.
Yeah. This guy is, for me, the KG Beast is
with
the
his
comic book
resources,
equivalent
he's got a way out.
of he's Michael Myers.
Yeah, he is. Yeah, he is.
He is just the personification.
But he mellowed out a lot between his killing spree and then making the Wayne's World movies. He really mellowed out.
Did
Oh,
you see The Love Guru?
yes.
I haven't seen that one. No.
That's when the murder spree started.
That is the Batman and Robin of the Mike Myers film worlds.
Or in Steve's case, the Superman 4.
Yes, even more.
I thought we weren't going to talk about it.
You said it. You said the bad thing.
I stand by it. A cinematic giant. I believe that they are my exact words that I've used with you before, Steve. It is a cinematic giant. And
Max Byrne agrees with you, so
I know he's. I think he's the world's #1 Mark Pillow fan.
Yes.
For those of you who don't know, Mark Pillow is Nuclear Man in Superman 4.
Superman's blonde clone who doesn't share
Man.
any similar powers or physicality with Superman. But there you
go. So KG Beast gets out of the room. Right. Let's say the KG Beast gets out of the room. You believe, Steve, that he gets out of the room and is broken.
He knows he's lost. What's the point of carrying on and getting defeated again? He gets his revenge by shooting Dick Grayson in the head 5-6 years later.
Yeah.
That's a better way to get at Batman, by killing the people he loves.
35 years later.
He's
I meant 4 or 5. I was been thinking about Miracle Man again.
This guy, like, I don't see this guy who we've followed for 4 issues, and we've only seen the mission he's done in Gotham. I mean, they've mentioned the atrocities this guy has committed around the world. This guy has to have failed at a mission before, and he didn't necessarily fail at the mission. He just didn't get his final target. You got to think about it. All of the people that have been killed, there's no way that this like Star Wars initiative can happen. Like the Beast, he actually
never
won.
did.
Even though, even though he didn't get the president, he didn't get his final target. He has done irreparable damage to this project, and this project, if it ever happens, is at least 15 years off of where it was. So the Beast won. The Beast completed his mission. I don't see him breaking out and saying, one man trapping me in a room breaks it.
I'm going to head out. I'm going to head home.
Plus the fact he accomplish his mission. What's the point in him staying? And we know it because he comes back years later. We know it happens. We know he got out of the room.
Look at how much it took for Bane to break Batman. He had to release basically all of Arkham Asylum. He had to
And give Batman
run him through the gauntlet. And then eventually,
and he was torturing him before that by giving Riddler venom and stuff like that in for a whole 5-6 months before Nightfall even started. I mean, obviously I know that because I'm a nerd and I was reading all that stuff before Nightfall, and the whole mess of meeting Azrael nearly topped Batman as well, and then getting locked in Arkham Asylum in the first 4 issues of Shadow of the Bat. All that stuff was the prelude to Nightfall.
And this guy, by Batman's own admission, is better than he is.
Yep.
Batman didn't do enough to break this guy. You look at how much Bane had to do to break
But
Batman.
Batman knew
this
that
guy
if he could get out of
better.
this room, so could the Beast.
Yeah, and if Batman got out of that room, he wouldn't have been broken.
Right, I'm gonna stop you both there. We're gonna go round in circles like 10 Nights of the Beast here.
Oh, you're here for the ride, my friend.
I am. I'm gonna say we've got to draw an indecisive. We don't know if he got in or got out or survived or died or was murdered or lived.
And that's the beauty of it.
Because none of us are wrong.
Beauty of it.
That's the beauty of it. It is just like it's an
it's
ambiguous
also
ending,
the fact,
but it's a satisfying ending.
Yeah, it's also the fact that we're all grown up, even though we're a little bit annoyed that our point of view isn't the one that's being agreed by everybody. Because let's be honest, we all are. But we're all grown up enough not to turn into children and insult each other and call each other stupid like you see so much on the internet. And that's why I love talking to people like you two, because you're smart, you're funny, and I can have a conversation with you that will not turn into an argument. And God bless you. And we need to do this again and again and again. So, Steve, just get your thinking cap on, brother, because you need to be back on this show. It's that simple.
Well, if you guys will have me back, as I've alluded to, we've got the companion book at this point, which is Detective Comics. And man, I would have to, again, a story I think is ridiculously underrated. Mudpack. You know where I'm coming to say, it's brilliant. Brayfogel's art, it's the Mudpack. And if you haven't read them, I don't know if the Mudpack is collected. This may be one where people
I've
will
only
actually
got the
have
4
to hunt
issues
it down.
again. That's something I quickly want to ask you before we wrap up, though, actually. Because even rereading this story for tonight, I couldn't bring myself to read all 4 issues back to back, because you and I read these episodically, monthly, as they were meant to be read. And so many writers these days write it knowing that it's going to be collected at some point. And particularly the ending where Beast chops his hand off and then the guy who gives him the gun is dead on the first page of the next issue. Reading that as a book must be a little bit jarring. I purposely read this book over like 4 or 5 days, chapter by chapter, issue by issue for this show, just to keep it that. And again, I'd forgotten certain things and it worked better for me. Did you guys read it all in one sitting for tonight?
You're such a sweetheart, you know that?
Thank you. I, with 100% full disclosure, I did not reread this book for this podcast. I had a flick.
You probably read it so many times, yeah.
I know this book back to front. I know this book inside out. I mean, it's for me, it's the defining book of this era. Like you said, this trumps Death in the Family. Death in the Family is a fantastic story.
Yeah, but this is way better.
This is just the pacing, the concept, and again, Stalin has this thing like you read Death in the Family, regardless of what happens, Batman loses.
Yep.
He's lost. He's done. It doesn't matter what he does to the Joker. He's lost. The Joker's won. In this, the Beast has won. It's Batman did not stop the Beast from fulfilling his mission. He stopped him from killing one person.
Yep.
And that's it. I couldn't bring myself to reread it in its entirety. I did read issue 4. I couldn't bring myself to read it in its entirety because I know if I did, the long boxes would have come out and I would have been every single Stalin. I would have just been
17
plowing
issues
through.
deep.
And
I was this
I've-
close.
It's
You two
impossible.
nerds.
I can't start the Stalin run without reading all the Stalin run. I know my weakness. I don't have.
I
enough
had the same
time,
one.
You know, it's
It's our kryptonite.
I flick. But if I open those long boxes and I get the smell of those old school Stalin books wafting out of the book,
Call your
out of the
sponsor.
long
Call
box.
your sponsor.
Yeah, but
that's me, and I'm in a whole
we've all
different
got
continent.
these. We've all got these. We've all got these stories that they live. What's the expression people use nowadays? That lives rent free.
Oh,
I
yeah.
believe
It's
it's
free in
the
your head.
expression.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what 10 Nights of the Beast is for me. This is, when it comes to Batman, it's all 10 Nights of the Beast. This is the story I want to see adapted into a live action film. This
But
is
properly.
the story I want to see as an animation. You mentioned Rocky IV. Dolph Lundgren would have been perfect back in the 80s to play this part. There's no real speaking required. It's just the physicality and the presence. He would have nailed it. If he could be He-Man,
And he would have towered over Michael Keaton.
Yeah, a few issues back, Steve and I did an episode of Detective Comments where we talked about if there was another, like a sequel to any Batman movie, franchise, or TV show, what would you want to see? Dolph Lundgren as a KG Beast to a former cinematic Batman would have been a hell of a fight.
Yeah, but you need to avoid the trope that the mask cannot come off.
Would you rather Dolph Lundgren or 1980s Arnold Schwarzenegger?
Schwarzenegger would have to have his face shown, so Lundgren.
I feel Lundgren would have had the ability to move better than Schwarzenegger.
All right.
You need someone, because it's the thing I love about Apparo's
The
Batman.
agility
Is
side
Apparo's
of it, yeah.
Batman, exactly. He looks like a swimmer. He looks like an Olympic swimmer. He doesn't look like the muscle bound guy that we get today. That is just he'd tear a hamstring if he didn't do stretches before he left the Batcave. Like his size, yeah. And the idea of a KG Beast in the cinematic universe for me has to be able to move as fluid as a Batman does. He has to, but like you're saying, he has to tower over him. He has to be imposing. You have to look at this guy and think Batman is intimidated by this guy. I don't think that Schwarzenegger has the agility, the ability to move to pull this part off.
Mm-hmm.
I do love the fact that I didn't even bring his acting into question. It's just the way that
he acts as well. I didn't know that.
You're not sending me to the cooler.
So, yeah, Dolph. I'd have to go Dolph Lundgren. But who is? If you guys have maybe spoken about this before, if we're talking 80s Batman, KG Beast, who is playing Jim Apparo's Batman?
In the 80s, eh?
I always wanted Tim Matheson to be Batman because he looks exactly like Bruce Wayne, and he's a fantastic actor. Animal House,
actually
Otter,
Drop Dead Fred.
Yeah, he's just. I mean, he's literally a comic book character come to life, and he can bloody act. I've always wanted him to be Batman back in the 80s. Tim Matheson. Otter in Animal House. Search Animal House Otter.
Oh, him!
Yeah, he would have been my choice for Batman. I think he might have even been in the running for a while, but this is the 80s, so there was no internet then. No real internet anyway.
Right, okay.
Yeah, that's not a bad choice. That's not a bad choice at all. I don't think I can do better than that.
Yeah.
I'm a nerd.
He looks the part.
Yeah, he would have been perfect. Actually, he would have made a decent Superman as well, to be fair.
Yeah, he does have that look about him.
But yeah. But yeah, that's it. That's 10 Nights of the Beast. I mean, we all agree on one thing for sure. It's one of the pivotal great Batman stories of the era by one of the greatest Batman creative teams of all time, who only did the book for a year and a half, but look what they did, and we're still talking about it. So, Steve, dude, thank you, man. Thank you so much for bringing that one back, and people read it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you knew as soon as you asked me, you had to know that this is where we were
I
going.
thought it would be near
I,
the top of the list. I knew it would
yeah.
be, yeah.
I don't think we've ever had a Batman discussion without me bringing up 10 Nights of the Beast and how
Nope.
criminally underrated it is.
Totally. I mean, the fact you and I both agree, at least on that it's way better than A Death in the Family.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, 100%.
I'm
Like
just,
100%.
I like A Death in the Family. We all like A Death in the
Yeah.
Family, but this is a great story.
Yeah. Yeah.
Fact.
So, well, thank you guys. I do not get the opportunity to talk about this story enough, and I really do appreciate taking the time and letting me talk your ear off a little bit about Jim Starlin's wonderful 10 Nights of the Beast.
Thank you, Stephen. Before we go, I mean, I know you're not quite as active as you were online as back in the day, and which is fucking criminal if you ask me, because you need to be out there. And if it means me dragging you on this show a bit more often so you can get your sea legs back and start the retro pod again, we need you out there, man, and come back to Comics in Motion, because people are asking me about you all the time. But when you're good and ready, so where can we hear what you've done in the past, read what you're writing, and know more about you? I know you're not too much on social media, but tell us where we can find you, mate.
Like you said, I don't think that there really is anywhere you can find me where I am especially active. I'm not really on social media. I do have a Twitter. I think it's called The Great Steve Oley, which is my persona I invented many, many years ago, which is The Great Steve Oley and his stage of mystery. I have absolutely no magical training as a magician whatsoever. I just thought it was amusing to call myself that. So if you can find me on Twitter, I think it's under The Great Steve Oley. And yeah, I'm basically just spending a lot of my time just reading, consuming. I am writing something at the moment that I'm hoping will go somewhere. Which is, it is basically, I found out a few years ago that Nolan Bushnell, the guy who invented Atari or founded Atari, he had the original Pong machine, the serial number 001. And I asked him about it when I spoke to him, and it was actually stolen. So what I've done is I'm writing something which is basically a fictional account of this Pong machine as it works its way through Hollywood. And makes appearances in movies like The Breakfast Club and all of that kind of thing. So that's basically how I'm spending my time at the moment. It's just
if that takes off, I've got your idea for a sequel. The copy of Action Comics #1 that was stolen from Nicolas Cage's house.
I do like that. I like that a lot.
That was probably Travolta again.
Yeah, but I have started making a list. I have started reaching out to people, and it looks like I will be doing season 3 of the Retro Project sometime this year. So that will be coming back.
You heard it here,
the only thing that's holding me back is this season, and it's very, very difficult. I don't know if it's ego or if it's a complete lack of humbleness, but I cannot get a single woman to come on the show. So what I've decided, I've set myself the challenge of season 3 of the Retro Project will simply be all women that I'll be speaking to. So if either of you know how to get hold of Jeanette Kahn, I will gladly take her phone number.
Karen Berger?
Oh, I've reached out.
I'd let you know.
I can give it a shout. I mean, I do talk to a few female creators, and we've interviewed a few, so I can try. But I've got to say, Karen and Jeanette are going to be hard asks because they are living legends. But I know a great few female writers who probably would speak to you. But obviously, just let me know if they're in your wheelhouse. But we'll talk about that afterwards.
Yeah. But yeah. So that's me waffling on. Feel free to edit that bit down. I forgot.
Nope.
I did forget that. I did forget at one point I would have to speak about myself, which is not something I do well.
I'm just happy that there's more coming. What about
Yeah.
you, James? Where can the Gothamites of this particular parallel world find you?
You can read my comic book reviews on darkknightnews.com, and you can read my humble opinions, predictions for endings of comic books and reveals on X, formerly Twitter, under the name of James Attias DC27. And I think that's about it. Steve, where can they hear and find you and hear and everything and podcast?
And well, this very show, which you've just watched or listened to, but literally just type Steve J. Ray into your Google or any search engine of choice, and that'll take you across all my mad ramblings across Dark Knight News, DC Comics News, and My Baby and Adam's Baby Fantastic Universes. And you can catch this show both on the Fantastic Universes Podcast Network and on the Comics in Motion Podcast Network, and on YouTube, Spotify, Google Play, wherever you get your yummy audio and video goodness. But until you do, there's a couple of things you need to know. This has been issue 5 of Detective Comments, 10 Nights of the Beast, with huge thanks to Steve Conroy.
Thanks,
Join us
guys.
next time.
Thank you.
Same bat time, same bat channel.